is that Congress has passed the 2024 budget, and it includes the largest sum yet for environmental management projects in Oak Ridge. This year, OREM has about $695 million to work with. That, by the way, is almost $60 million more than last year. So, to help us understand where exactly that money will go, we've got Alan Stokes here with us. He is the director of the Planning and Execution Division. Alan, thank you so much for being here. You know a thing or two about this because you've got a couple of years of experience. Yeah. 2 decades?
Been doing this
more
for a
than 2
while.
decades? A little while. So when you look at the budget here, we've got the 2023 budget and the 2024 budget. Looking at these, where are you seeing the biggest increases, and why do you think that is?
Okay. So these 2 columns represents the amount that Congress has appropriated. We call it an enacted budget. And as you pointed out, $695 million in 24, that's a high watermark for the Oak Ridge budget. In the past, we've been getting in this range, $640 million. So you can see the biggest increases are in the Y12 OREM cleanup and MTF construction. But before we dig into that, I think it's important to point out what does each of these rows represent.
Okay.
And those are called congressional control accounts. If you go and look at the enacted appropriation, you will see a table that lists each one of these. And those are, think of them as bank accounts.
Okay.
So when Congress deposits money in this bank account, I can't use it for work on this bank account.
Okay.
So that's important to note, that we've got to manage the money within each one of these bank accounts.
Right.
So Y12 OREM cleanup, that's where we had the biggest increase. That's where we do the cleanup, knocking down the buildings and cleaning dirt at Y12 and OREM. It also covers our operations that we do at Y12 and OREM, where we operate landfills, and we also do waste treatment processing at OREM.
Okay.
The next big increase is the MTF construction. This is a construction line item, and it's to build the Berkeley treatment facility at the Outfall 200 at Y12. This is a critical infrastructure project that we need once we start moving into the cleanup of the mercury processing buildings, Beta 4 and Alpha 5. This will be online before we start demoing those facilities.
Okay.
ETTP cleanup, this is the money we get from Congress to clean up ETTP. It's relatively flat. In 2024, we will finish up the soil remediation. This budget will start to come down as we finish up groundwater and the rest of the activities that's needed to close the site to move it to long-term stewardship. This bank account is for operations of transuranic waste processing system, where we're processing and disposition legacy, CH, and RH true waste. U-233 dispositions, the bank account for processing special nuclear material that's stored in Building 3019 at OREM. This is another construction line item project that is to build a follow-on circular disposal facility. We have one now that's basically been full based on ETP cleanup. We need a new one to enable us to handle the debris coming off of Y12 and OREM cleanup. Safeguard and Security handles our ProForce and cybersecurity requirements. This is where we fund the regulators for their oversight of us. And then we have some money here for TD that enables us to try to get in front of when we hit the mercury processing buildings, we're going to have mercury. It's the major contaminant.
Right.
This is helping us to develop and look at different technologies that we can use to help address that hazard that we're going to have when we get there.
Okay, great. And when you look at this, is there anything that surprises you, having the context that you have, having seen all of these projects from where they've been to where they are now? Anything on here surprise you, or is this sort of to be expected?
I think this kind of an increase is not a surprise. It's a welcomed, but I wouldn't say it's a surprise. Oak Ridge prides itself on finishing what we start and being investment worthy while we're doing it. This is an indication from not only Congress, but OMB, the President's office, and EM headquarters, that if they give us money, we're going to get things done with it. And that's a testament to the work, not only that the feds do, but our contractors as well. We have a high-performing contractor.
And speaking of that, so now I think we've got another graphic here that we want to show you. Speaking of how this whole process works, beginning to end here, what's it look like for those who don't understand the federal budget process?
Yeah, so the chart we just showed was the end of the budget formulation process. The start of the budget formulation process started 2 years ago.
So this is long. This takes a while.
Yeah, so we were actually developing the 24 budget back in 22. And the budget formulation process from start to finish is really a lessons in civics. It demonstrates that two branches of government that have to work for each other, and there's checks and balances. But in basic terms, the budget starts at the field sites. That makes sense because that's where the work is done. We know what needs to be done and the resources it takes to do it. All the sites submit it to headquarters, who then consolidates and prioritizes at the headquarters level what the EM program needs. Then that gets rolled up at the department level with all the other programs, science and NNSA, National Security. And ultimately, the department, the secretary then submits their budget request to OMB, Office of Management and Budget. And that's the president's office, the arm of the president that actually develops the budget that goes to Congress. So sites submit to headquarters, it rolls it up. Programs submit to the secretary's CFO's office that rolls up the programs. All the departments go to OMB, who then rolls all of those up. President submits it to Congress.
Okay.
And that's when the fun starts.
That's at 3.
Yes, number 3. So once the president signs it and it goes to Congress, then within Congress we have 2 branches, the House and the Senate. Both of those have subcommittees. We're in the Energy and Water Committee, and the subcommittee under each one of those does the appropriation. They literally call it markup. They take the budget that the president submitted, they start marking it up.
That is the fun part.
Yes, it is. And in our case, we're getting increases, not decreases.
So it is fun for us.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Once the subcommittees do their markups, then it has to go to the floor, actually the Appropriations Committee that sits on top of the subcommittees, and they actually roll it out to the floors where the full House and Senate vote on it. And once that's done, then it goes back to the president to sign, and then we start the budget execution process.
Okay, so you have to predict the future a little bit working 2 years ahead like this. So you've got to really have a handle then on how the projects are doing and how the deadlines are going with them.
Correct, and thus the title in my name is Planning and Execution. So without planning, we're just throwing darts into the night.
And you can't do that?
No, we can't do that. We cannot afford to get to a year and say, uh-oh, we missed this. So we are forward-looking. We have a life cycle baseline where we've laid out, here's all the work that needs to be done through the life cycle to clean up Oak Ridge. And that then allows us to be able to formulate the budget to meet what we think is going to be the future needs.
So right now you're on 2026?
Correct. We just submitted 2026 to headquarters.
Well, I hope we have a wonderful year in 2026 for all sorts of reasons, but we'll check back in with you then. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain this to us. And again, we'll have Alan back because this was great. And I know budget stuff can get confusing for folks, so thank you very much for taking the time.